Max Bankman, I'm the new doctor.
Welcome aboard the Odyssey.
ABC Thursdays.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams. I'm in.
From 911 executive producer Ryan Murphy comes a splashy new drama on a luxury cruise ship with Joshua Jackson and Don Johnson.
It's your job to keep everyone alive.
She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Dr. Odyssey. Thursdays, 9/8 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility. Together they make the Deathly Hallows. Together they make one Master of Death. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 3 of Deathly Hallows, The Dursleys Departing. Julie is with us today.
Hey everybody.
We got Julie on for a Dursley episode, so this will be fun. But before we get to the episode, we do have a couple of shout-outs, and one special shout-out, which we'll get to in a second. The first shout-out comes from Tony on Half-Blood Prince Chapter 30, The White Tomb, so a recent one. Tony says, I think the difference of his hate is based on the knowledge Harry has. One is very honest in his evil behavior. Snape was someone who was trusted by Dumbledore, so it feels 1,000 times worse to be betrayed by someone that is supposed to be an ally. Kind of like Hans in Frozen, who I personally think is one of the evilest villains, Disney villains, because he's the one you didn't see coming. So that's in reference to who should Harry place more hate in, Snape or Voldy?
I don't know. I'm more Team Voldy, purely because I think Snape is just more of a situational in the moment kind of hatred. And like Harry's been putting hate on Voldemort for the past 6, almost 7 years now. And so, I mean, I feel like that's always kind of been there and it's always kind of burning. But with the Snape wound being more fresh, it's more easy to be like, nope, all on him, his fault, he's bad.
So, the Disney part of this question. Who is your most evil villain in Disney?
Oh, I wasn't ready for this one, Dan. That's you know what?
You want me to give you some time? I'll give you mine.
Let me hear yours.
So I was pondering this greatly because I knew I was going to have this conversation with you. And I was actually reading for Chapters 3 and Chapter 4 that we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And in the background, I can't do anything in silence. So I have to have something on in the background as I read. And I decided to put on Aladdin.
My all-time favorite movie. Dan, what are you doing to me this episode?
I do love Aladdin myself. But my most evil Disney villain is Jafar.
What?
Yep.
Okay, listen, Jafar's bad, but I'm with Tony here. I think Hans ranks pretty high up there. I think a lot of the more recent Disney villains have been a lot more in the Umbridge realm of villain, where they're
evil from the start.
Well, yeah, but it's a lot more deceptive. It's not just a straight out villain. You cannot tell me that you watched Frozen and when you met Hans, you were like, yep, that's the villain. It's him.
Sure.
He's the bad guy.
No, it's a great twist.
Yeah.
It's great. And Jafar, you have no misconceptions about from the very beginning. He is clearly the villain. He is evil. He looks evil. He sounds evil. Everything he does just oozes evil.
Okay, but Hans came in with the line of, I'm not exactly quoting because I can't remember the exact quote, but if only someone loved you to Anna? Ouch, come on! Yeah. Nothing Jafar did was that bad.
No, but some of Jafar's, and this is more of a time stamp than I guess anything else particularly, but there are some lines from Jafar that were evil then and have aged even worse
Well, that's most Disney movies.
That's fair. But you'll go back and watch Aladdin and listen to some of the things Jafar says, and you're like, ooh, that's...
Dan, I can quote the entire Aladdin movie, so I don't need to go back and watch it.
Some of the things he says to Jasmine is, oh, boy.
Oh, well, I mean...
Oh, my.
Yeah.
It's the same debate as one is a twist, and then one is super evil from the get-go, and you always know he's evil. But anyway, so there's our Disney conversation for the day. But we have another... comment from AV, also from Chapter 30, The White Tomb. AV says, congrats on a great review of the book. Thank you, AV. Love this book. Umbridge is a great villain, in reference to her appearance at the funeral. One thing I didn't like was the romance. Felt that was way too much.
Dan, I feel like you picked out all these shout-outs specifically for me because I agree. The romance, and I think part of it, I know I talk about this a lot, is we kind of forget the ages of the characters when we're reading these, especially going back as adults. But, like, man, Book 5 and Book 6, the amount of teenage hormones... I think part of what makes it so exhausting in these books is that, like, you don't get that in any of the earlier books. Like, you get the random, like, you know, ooh, she's cute. Or the, like, oh, Harry Potter's a celebrity. But you don't get the, like, I'm gonna go and make Ron jealous. And it's, so I think it just gets annoying because, like, you're not used to that. And then all of a sudden you essentially have, like, 7 chapters that are just about that. It advances the plot and it shows us the age of the characters, but I think when we're so used to everything in the book being so compactly focused on magic, that then once you get more of the teenage component of it, you're like, what's happening here? Because even when you throw in the teenage component of, like, sports, it's still Quidditch. It's not like they're out there playing, like, football or something. Right. Like, they're still on broomsticks, so you're like, magic sports, yay!
I think this is also a snapshot of the time that it was written, because I feel like when she wrote this, in her eyes, 11, 12, 13-year-olds weren't really, like, it was still in the mindset of girls are icky, or boys are gross. You know, and nowadays it's a little different because 6th graders have boyfriends and girlfriends, which is weird, and you can think about that whatever you want. But it's a change because cell phones and social media is all different. But anyway, so I think the time has changed a little bit. But I think she was trying to get a snapshot of what a 16-year-old's life is, and I thought it was a fairly accurate one. It is awkward. It is drama-filled. Believe me. Working at a high school, I get kids coming up to me all the time being like, Dan, my crush just posted another girl on his Instagram.
But I think it just comes back to that even though she's capturing the snapshot of the age range that they're in, when you haven't had, like, you know,
that's fair.
To your example, the, like, girls are icky of, like, a preteen, like, then all of a sudden it feels a little out of left field to have all of this, like, romance and let's make them jealous and let's be upset about it. And so
that's fair.
Yeah,
it does kind of, it creeps on you in book 4 and then it hits you like a sledgehammer 5 and 6.
Yeah. Like book 4, you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense that they're gonna have crushes on people and go on dates. And then book 5, you're like, I'm sorry, I said it makes sense that they go on dates, not that I want an entire book about it.
You didn't love the entire Madame Puttyfoot's scene where him and Cho are awkwardly having tea?
Dan, it is framed in my house as my all-time favorite chapter.
Fun fact from Julie. There you go. So now is the time where we would usually get into the chapter, and we will talk about this chapter, The Dursleys Departing. However, we have a special shout-out. There has, since we last posted an episode, we have suffered a loss in the Harry Potter world. Maggie Smith passed away. Obviously, Professor McGonagall in the movies, and as well as many other great performances in her long and storied career. Also relevant that she died literally the same day a year apart from Michael Gambon.
Yes.
Which is weird and surreal and crazy to think about. But So we just wanted to give a special shout out to Maggie Smith. So if you bear with us really quick, we will play some of our favorite McGonagall lines.
Your house will be like your family. I am merely requesting that when it comes to my students, you conform to the prescribed disciplinary practices.
So silly of me, but it sounds as if you're questioning my authority in my own classroom. Minerva.
Not at all, Dolores. Merely your medieval methods.
Something you'd like to say, dear?
Oh, there are several things I would like to say. Why is it, when something happens, it is always you three?
So that's just a couple. I don't know, Julie, if you have a favorite line that she uttered or a favorite moment in her time as Professor McGonagall.
For me, Professor McGonagall, and Maggie Smith, I should say, is probably one of the most iconic performances in the movies. Anytime that, like, I know that there's been a lot of talk with the HBO show coming up of, like, how dare people think of replacing any of the cast members? And for me, like, McGonagall was the perfect representation of what was in the book. Like, Maggie Smith knocked it out of the park in every execution of every line, of every, like, side eye, of every glance. And then when you, like, fast forward to when she was battling cancer and was still, like, on set and absolutely nailing every single moment as McGonagall, like, I already love Maggie Smith and outside of Harry Potter, but, like, for me, like, she is Minerva McGonagall. This one hurts. And it's hard to pick anything that's, like, a specific, like, this is the most, like, iconic line or best delivery, because, like, I hate to sound overindulgent of her, but it's, like, all of them, every single execution. Like, she is the one actor in the entire movie franchise that I'm like, nope, we have to figure out how to replace Maggie Smith. And by replace her, I mean clone her to bring her back as Minerva McGonagall, because fight me, no one can do better than her.
You said it best. There are several characters from the movies that are going to be hard to replace. Alan Rickman as Snape is going to be hard, and that was one that hurt because, again, outside of Harry Potter alone, Alan Rickman has a unbelievable career.
Agreed.
So it's really hard to replace a lot of these actors, and with Maggie Smith, some of those quotes we played weren't in the books. Mm-hmm. They were either ad-libbed or added in by screenwriters or what have you. But to your point, she said those lines as if she was Minerva McGonagall. Mm-hmm. The waspishness of it, the bite to it, but the humor to it as well. I think she embodied all of who Minerva McGonagall is, and she did such a phenomenal job with doing so. So it's a loss.
Yeah.
We hope that you at least enjoyed hearing some of those movie clips. I know we get on the movies a lot here on the podcast, but there are some really, really great gems from them that I think we as critics of those movies always enjoy going back to and seeing and hearing, and it's always fun. Did you hear the rumor, by the way? Sorry, we'll get to the chapter, I promise. Did you hear the rumor that Gary Oldman is wanting to be back on the HBO show, but not as Black?
He wants to be back as Dumbledore.
As Dumbledore, yeah. How do you feel about that?
I also love Gary Oldman, even if he wasn't Sirius Black.
He's another phenomenal actor just in general.
He's one of my all-time favorite actors. Yeah. I love him in just about everything. Him as Commissioner Gordon in the Dark Knight trilogy, phenomenal. And everything else he's in. I've never watched anything with Gary Oldman and been like, well, that was okay.
He was Churchill once.
Yes.
That was fantastic. Yeah, he was very good.
So I would love to see him back in the franchise. And I mean, it's hard for me to picture him as Dumbledore when I already have such a vivid, like, image of him as Black. But I'm not mad about it.
Here's what
I'll take it.
I think he would do a great job, and here's why. He has himself been critical of his own performance as Sirius Black.
Yeah.
He says and I'm going to paraphrase a lot of what he said, so bear with me. But he said, I wasn't taking it as seriously as I should have. If I had, yes, if I had known the depth of the character or the depth of what I was even working on, I would have maybe added something or done something a little bit differently or whatever have you. So now that he has now the benefit of all of the books are out, you get the full picture, which he didn't have then.
Yeah.
So there was that. But he gets the full picture now as Dumbledore. That could be a really great asset to have all of the information to you as an actor to then...
Yeah, I think the only thing that I have against the idea...
He could be calm.
He could be calm. Sold. That better be the first question. Like, I don't even care about an audition process. Will you calmly ask Harry if he put his name in the Goblet of Fire? No? Get out. Did you read the books to know who the character was? No? Get out. But I think as much as I would love to have him back in the series, I also feel like the only way for the series to be successful is if it's a fresh, clean slate.
I hope for just the actors' sake, because the casting call went out not so long ago for the trio, and these are kids. Like, I'm hoping they don't get a whole lot of hate. They're kids. Yeah. They're children. Like, let's put Venom aside.
Yeah.
And just let's see it. Let's see how they do it. It's HBO. Hopefully they'll put a ton of money behind it. They're going to actually put more of the book into it because they'll do 7 seasons where it's a full season, not just a 2.5 hour movie. So hopefully they'll be able to do it a little bit more fuller.
You mean what it'll look like if Chris Columbus did all the movies?
And got 7+ hours worth to do it, not 2.5. That'd be interesting. You know what we shouldn't do is take 7.5 hours before we get to the actual chapter.
True. Thanks for staying with us, everybody.
Thanks for staying with us. But there is an actual chapter to talk about, and that chapter is the Dursleys departing. Obviously, this starts off with the familiar melodic call of one Vernon Dursley with, "Oi, you!" So we get that. Harry starts the chapter with pretty much where he left off, of tucking the mirror into his rucksack. He obviously saw the glint of a blue eye in the mirror, so he thinks that there might be a connection to Albus, and he wants that connection, so he tucks it into his rucksack before getting summoned by Vernon Dursley. And Vernon begins by questioning if his safety is threatened or Harry just wants the house.
Okay, but like I don't want to say I get it, but when you think of Vernon Dursley, like the fact that he needs the help of the wizarding community to potentially stay safe, like the first thing that you do when you're pretty much forced to do something you don't want to do is think of all the reasons why you shouldn't do it anyway. And when, for the Dursleys, like, what do they even actually fully know about the wizarding world? Like, they know who Voldemort is and they know some of the stuff, and I'm sure they know a lot more than what they're ever letting on. But you're telling me that Harry came home and was like, let's have a nice 3-hour chat about Voldemort and what this threat means. Mm-hmm. Like, no, nobody cares. So I get it that he's like, you know what? This is probably just a great scheme to get our beautiful, perfectly maintained house. Like, I get it.
Well, Harry then goes into an explanation again about the charm and how the charm works, and possible Death Eater plans to capture them, torture them. Would Harry come and save them?
Duh. There is literally the moment where Vernon and Harry like look at each other, where they're both contemplating if Harry would save them. Of course he would. Because if he wouldn't, why would they protect the Dursleys? What do the Dursleys know? Nothing. They have no insight. Like, what? They're going to name off the members of the Order of the Phoenix? Oh, man. The Death Eaters already know all that information. What are they going to say? Oh, Harry went with the Weasleys. Whoa, shocker. No one would have guessed that. Like, the only reason to keep the Dursleys safe is if they thought if the Dursleys were captured that Harry would try and save them.
I agree with you for the most part. I agree Harry would end up coming to save the Dursleys. I will say that the Order And generally, people outside of the bubble of Privet Drive don't really understand the dynamic between the Dursleys and Harry, which is frosty at best. So there is that. And we get that later because Hestia Jones and Dedalus Diggle were like, this is odd. So they don't really understand that. However, while Harry, I think, would go save them, the thought would at least cross his mind. It's not like a Sirius Black moment where he's like, I am going headlong, forget any danger,
but
whatever.
Like, think about it. Harry saves literally everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
Everyone.
For sure.
You know what? Voldemort could be hanging off the side of a building, and instead of, like, stomping on his hand so that he falls, Harry'd be like, hold on, bro, let me help you up. Like, Harry saves literally everyone. So, of course, he's gonna save the people that, like, even if they were completely terrible to him for his entire life, they still kept him in the house.
Yeah. Yeah, they still held up their part of the bargain, and I don't know. It's hard. And this is why the thought crosses his mind, is because he was abused for 11 plus years.
Yeah.
So, the thought does cross his mind. That glance that he gives with Vernon is like, wait, we haven't been great.
No, I think the glance is more of a... Vernon, I think, does not think that Harry would save them.
Yeah, agreed.
I think Harry's glance is also, you can clearly tell that Harry's, like, annoyed with all of this, like, back and forth and essentially having to, like, babysit the Dursleys while he just, like, sits in this house by himself. Not by himself, but essentially by himself. And I think that he's also having, like... Because, let's be real, Harry has a bit of an attitude in this chapter. And I think that this is Harry being like, would I save you?
Oh, you think it's him being a little petty?
Yeah, I think Harry's being petty. I don't think that it's Harry going like, I don't know if I'd save you guys. Because again, if Harry wasn't going to save him, why not tell the Order, guys, don't worry about it?
Oh, no, I think he would. Because Harry's not a bad human being. Like, he would go save them. Do you think Vernon, though, in this moment, when he looks at Harry at this idea or thought, and has any, like, an ounce of regret about how he treated Harry?
No.
Not even, like, 1%?
Mm-mm.
0.5%?
Mm-mm. Actually, no, I take that back. I do think he does, because later in the chapter, he does come close to shaking Harry's hand to say goodbye, and I don't think we would have gotten that moment if there wasn't that little bit of regret. But I don't think that there's a big, like, wow, we should have treated him better. I think it was a, like, oh, we misstepped a little here, didn't we? Nope, no, we didn't. I'm Vernon Dursley. I don't do anything wrong.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So Vernon then asks for Ministry of Magic help. Don't you guys have a ministry? You have a ministry, right? They can help. And he just doesn't want only the Order's protection. He wants the ministry. Or, at the very least, the least you can do for me. Can I get that Kingsley guy? That Kingsley guy is cool. Come on, give me Kingsley. I feel for Vernon Dursley in this very one moment, because I would also, if I was in trouble, I would want Kingsley guarding me. I would want Kingsley as my guy.
Is that Harry's like, he's kind of the personal bodyguard for your prime minister right now. And Vernon Dursley's like, yeah, that's exactly the point. Like, I need him. I am the same level of importance as the prime minister. Which in reality, like, not saying that Vernon Dursley is that important, but like, Harry Potter is, which by proxy gets the Dursleys, Secret Service protection.
Right.
But I just thought it was funny. That,
this even comes up because they saw Kingsley protecting the Prime Minister on TV.
Yes.
They're like, wait, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Can we get him? Like, I want that guy.
Purely because Vernon Dursley wants to walk around and be like, yes, that's right. It is the private security of the Prime Minister that is keeping an eye on me.
Instead, however, he gets Hestia Jones and Dedalus Diggle.
And he wants their CVs.
I will say this. I have made a mistake recently where I said Dodge was the one that introduced himself at the Leaky Cauldron to Harry. Way back when, it was Diggle with the ridiculous top hat. So there is that. But, yeah, you get these two, which is remarkable that they're donating 2 members of the Order of the Phoenix to guard a Muggle family. Like, isn't that... I mean, we're in a war, and you're dedicating 2 resources to...
Yeah, I mean, like, you're not donating to, like, frontline resources.
To be fair, we don't know much about Hestia Jones or Diggle.
Yeah, but I think if they were frontliners, we would. You almost have to have two, though, because it's 3 muggles who are directly connected to Harry, who also have a hatred for the magical world. Like, you need to have it a little bit more evenly matched, I think, than 1 on 3. Even with that one having magical powers.
Harry tries to convince them of, hey, you really need to go with these two, because everything you're seeing on TV, the bridges collapsing, the fog, the weird weather, like literally the disappearances, the murders, everything you're seeing is from Voldy. And this is the guy that's trying to kill me, and by, proximity, you guys would then be in danger. You need to go. And then Dudley pipes up. And he says, no, I think I'm going to go with this Order group. I think I'm going to go with them. And then Vernon and Petunia are like, what? What? Oh, no, okay, I guess we're going.
I will say, not that Dudley really gets, like, a major redemption arc, but I like his little mini redemption arc that he gets in this chapter. I think it's real cute.
When they're getting ready to say goodbye, when all of them are getting ready to say goodbye, they have this thought of, what do you say to someone after 16 years of solid dislike? You're not exactly gonna, bro hug this out and be like...
Bro hug it out.
Like, it's not gonna be this... So, Hestia Jones and Diggle are expecting this whole almost borderline indecent show of emotion between this family that is splitting apart.
And then Harry's like, nah, you're fine.
Nah,
you
you're
can
good.
Stay here.
And then, if everything else, Petunia starts weeping over Dudley's, like, little show of, like, wow, you actually care.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that line in a second. But they do let them know that, hey, we're kind of on the clock here because there's been a massive change to how this is all breaking down. So we kind of need to...
Sorry no one told you, Harry, that this whole plan to get you out of here has changed, but
Well,
it's changing soon.
That's the whole subplot of this whole 7-book series is, sorry we didn't tell you, but...
Hey, Harry, this little detail that, is literally life or death for you, we're not going to tell you about it, but...
Everything's changing. Everything is changing.
Good luck.
So we finally get the goodbye. As you mentioned, Vernon almost shakes Harry's hand. Petunia avoids looking at Harry altogether. And Dudley. Dudley, at first, doesn't really comprehend this whole situation because he's like, why isn't Harry coming with us? If he's in all this danger, shouldn't he go into hiding and protection too?
So my question with Dudley not comprehending is it because he cares and he wants to know that Harry's going to be safe in all of this? Or is it after the encounter with the Dementors that he thinks that, like, Harry should be with them? Like, Harry saved him before. Should Harry be with him now? Because, I mean, you're still talking about 16-year-olds.
Right.
Like, he has the ability to comprehend, like, hold on, if this is dangerous enough that, like, we have to leave, why isn't he coming with? And so, like, the question that I have is this Dudley essentially saying that, like, he cares for Harry and he wants Harry to be safe, and he's like, well, if this keeps us safe, why wouldn't it keep him safe?
I think, honestly, it's just a genuine question that he has, because it does make sense. Like, I'm sorry, like you said, Harry's also 16.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know what Harry has really been through the last 6 years.
I can't imagine Harry comes home every year and is like, guys, guess what? Almost died again.
Yeah. So Dudley doesn't know. So I think it's just a genuine, valid question from him, which in any other context is just a really good question of, wait, why isn't he coming with us? If this is all this danger, shouldn't he also go into protection? I think it's just a genuine question. And it's just... everybody that he's asking that question to is like, well, duh. I mean, he's everything.
he's the one that's gonna, like, either win or lose this for us. But, which then brings it back to earlier where I was saying that the Dursleys don't necessarily know the full extent of everything. So it's like, if the only thing that Dudley knows is, like, Voldemort bad, Voldemort kill, ooh, he has Dementors, don't like them. Like, is that all he knows? Or because it's not like, I don't see Harry sitting down with the Dursleys or anyone from the Order and being like, let's make you a flow chart so that you understand what's going on here. It's going to be all right, we have other stuff that we have to do right now. So like, here's the Spark Notes. Have fun reading. We'll see you in a week when you're leaving.
I think Harry's right in assuming that Vernon and Petunia don't want to hear any of it.
Yeah.
Vernon, for reasons. Petunia, oddly, for different reasons. But I think equal. Just doesn't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And I think he missteps and he assumes Dudley wouldn't want to hear about it, but maybe he would. Either way, Hestia Jones is completely outraged that the Dursleys are completely ignorant of A, Harry's struggles, B, the danger that he's actually presently in, and C, the place that he holds in the heart of the anti-Voldy movement.
Can you imagine being Hestia Jones and thinking that, like, you're protecting the Golden Boy's family, like, the Chosen One's family is under your protection, and then, like, you're sitting there for the goodbye, and they're like, all right, well, peace out, nice knowing ya, don't die, I guess. Like, wouldn't you gotta be like, wait, no, this is not what I signed up for. I signed up for, like, saving his loving family. Like, does it make you care less about their safety at that point?
I think Diggle and Jones are in for a very hard
Rude awakening.
time. Yeah. Which, I'm just going to say this now, I would love a spin-off series of the Dursleys, Diggle, and Jones just existing for this year.
I need it. I would even, you know what? HBO needs to do a little Marvel moment and do a post-credits scene that's literally just like them pulling up to, like, you know, a Motel 6 on the side of the road with the Dursleys. And like Hestia and Diggle are like, oh, this is amazing. Look at what you muggles come up with. And the Dursley, like, Petunia's just like running her finger to like see the dust. Like, oh.
I could see them getting amazed by the key card. Like, you just put a card up to the door and it opens and it's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. These muggles and their magic. Yeah.
Or Vernon trying to open the door that they've magicked shut.
Here's my thing, though. Even Harry in this position, after he hears Hestia Jones rattle off, like, you are the heart of the anti-Voldy movement across the wizarding world. If you're Harry, you're like, okay. Like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. I'm like,
well, but it's nothing that Harry hasn't heard before. I mean, the kid got thrown into the wizarding world being told, like, you're the reason that Voldemort's gone.
yeah. He doesn't like that, though. That's one thing he doesn't love, is the shine on him. He's like, can I just be off doing my own thing? Like, let's not have the entire weight of the wizarding world on my shoulders, whether it is or isn't. Like, I feel like he's aware of it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to be all the time consciously aware that everything is riding on him all the time. That's hard for anybody.
Well, you know what? Change your hair color, magic away your glasses, then people will recognize you.
It's fair. I guess that is a good point. Why haven't you done that in, like, the last 6 years? But anyway, Harry is very like, yeah, you know, it's okay. They just think I'm a waste of space. And Dudley pipes up again and says, quote, I don't think you're a waste of space.
See, this is what, like, it, like, gets me rereading this. Because the first time I read it, I kind of read it and was like, okay. Like, that's
I had a different reaction.
But, like, me reading it this time around, like, I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe this whole time, like, Dudley only really, like, picked on him because, like, his parents, like, picked on him.
Yeah, Dudley's growing and maturing, too. He's becoming his own person.
Like, he's becoming his own person. Obviously, he had the encounter with the Dementors, which, like,
seemingly
he saw
changed him. Yeah.
Harry, like, actually protect him and save him, and saw the, like, I guess the good that can come from magic and how bad it can be. And I think when that's put right in front of you, like, it's hard to ignore. Like, when Dudley asks Harry about the number of Dementors and Harry's like, yeah, there's more than 2. Like, I think it's starting to dawn on Dudley that, like, wow, we spent all this time kicking him when he's down. He's had to fight things that, like, if this is what I know about, what don't I know about? And I think it's really sweet that, like, in this moment where, like, Dudley doesn't have to say anything. He could literally just be like, all right, like, peace out. And when Harry says, like, they just think I'm a waste of space, like, Dudley takes that moment and is like, no, this is not how we're going to remember this. Like, I don't want our last, like, interaction to be you thinking that when, like, I don't feel that way about you. And I think that's really cute. I'm not saying that it, like, absolves Dudley of any of the, like, terrible, terrible things he did to Harry in the past, but, like, I like this little, like, one chapter redemption arc that we have here.
We have to remember these are 16-year-old kids. What this does is open up a potential line of relationship going forward, because no one is who they were at 16. I think you grow up and you have the rest of your life ahead of you, hopefully. Obviously, Harry's in a lot of danger here, but hopefully they have long, fulfilling lives that you can hopefully build on. And you do put a lot of that stuff from your early childhood in the rear view mirror for good. And you build something a lot better for a lot more years.
Yeah, I just appreciate that, like, Dudley took this moment to make sure that that's not how Harry remembers him going into this. That Harry doesn't remember him as the bully or, like, you know, the one that, like, made sure that he was shoved under the stairs. Like, he took this moment to be like, no, there is something between us. And I really like that. And I appreciate that Harry also, once Dudley says that, then goes, wait a minute, Dudley must have left me that cup of tea. Like, Harry takes that moment and instead of being like, well, that was a weird thing to say, like, bye, he actually takes it and goes, wait a minute, he doesn't hate me.
Yeah. I think it's a credit to both individuals. I think Dudley is stepping away from his parents and saying, no, this is not what I think of you. I think of you this way. Putting his feelings, however vague or however, you know, small in the moment. I mean, he's not saying, like, I love you, man, like, this is great. Yeah. But he's saying, like, hey, I don't think you're a waste of space. Like, I think more of you than that.
Yeah.
And Harry to be like, hey, like, thank you. Like, that actually, like, that's really cool. Thank you. I mean, he doesn't say those words, but he doesn't come across antagonistic. He doesn't come across sarcastic. He doesn't come across
and I think that
mean.
This is the first time all chapter that Harry doesn't seem, like, annoyed by the Dursleys' existence. Because the whole chapter, he's kind of like, can we just get this over with so that you guys can leave and be in the rear view mirror already? And I think this is the first moment where Harry is like, oh, wait, we're saying goodbye.
Well, I think, you know, we had that whole discussion about Vernon and Harry being like, ooh, would he save me? I don't know that he'd save me. This whole thing is Harry saving them.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to explain to them, you really need to leave here.
Yeah.
Like, you need to go.
One of the things that I put in my notes is, does Harry actually want a family goodbye in this moment? Like, yeah, the Dursleys were terrible to him, but they're the only blood family that he has. Does he actually want some type of, like, a handshake from Vernon or a hug from Petunia or, like, a tear, like a single tear from Petunia? And is his, like, attitude that he has with them this whole chapter his way of making sure that, like, he doesn't have another set of people that he has to worry about? He already has so many friends at Hogwarts that he has to worry about. He's grown so close with the Order. He's seen Sirius die and Albus die, and there's so much that he has to worry about with people that are close. And part of me wonders if the reason that he's so flippant at, like, the Dursleys leaving forever is the, like, yes, they were terrible and awful to him, but they were still his family. Like, you see it in people who have been abused, whether it's by a partner or a parent, that no matter how bad it is, they still have such a hard time leaving because there's still that connection. Whether it's, well, I loved the person that they were, or there's still my parents.
You're what you know.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you know.
And so part of me wonders if the reason that Harry is so harsh in this chapter isn't because of what the Dursleys did to him in the past, but it's the, like, I can't also worry about a family, especially if that family, like, has pretty much told me I'm a waste of space my entire life.
I don't think he wanted, because I truly believe he had maybe even negative, like less than 0 expectations for the Dursleys even caring at all about any of this.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think that changed the second Dudley says, I don't think you're a waste of space. And now a whole other potential world has opened up in Harry, like, oh wait, I thought this was a very one-sided, one-dimensional, one-note answer. Now there's potential for more to this relationship than I thought there even could possibly be. So I do think it changes in this chapter, which is fascinating. And, upon their last goodbye, Dudley surprises Harry further and actually does reach out his hand to shake Harry's and says, "See you, Harry." And Harry's response is, "Maybe. Take care, Big D."
Right in the feels, man.
Yeah, it
That
does.
got
It does
me
hit you.
this time.
It's a really important interaction, and I think, we've said a lot about the Dursleys, we've said a lot about Vernon, we've said a lot about Petunia. I personally have said a whole lot about Marge, but I think it needs to be said here that Dudley, as a 16-year-old kid, shows that he's better than his parents, which is a very mature, very profound statement that Dudley makes here.
Especially since Dudley has always been portrayed as, like, the photocopy of his parents.
At some point, Petunia realizes that she and Harry are the last 2 people in the room. And she stops, she looks back at Harry, and Harry notes that she seemingly wants to say something. She gives an odd look back to him, but then leaves without a word. Like I said, Vernon and Petunia both hate the Wizarding World. However, I think they have different reasons for why they hate the Wizarding World.
Yeah.
And we can get into, the nitpicking of Petunia's whole role in this thing. But the movies, this wasn't even in the movie. It's in the extra scenes that you get on, like, the bonus DVD. But, because DVDs were a thing, kids, back in the day.
We didn't get to stream everything all the time back in our day.
But honestly, I think it's a really cool scene where they have Dudley shake Harry's hand and they have Petunia say her 2 cents of, like, you're not the only person that's lost something to this.
Yeah.
And it's a great scene that doesn't obviously happen in the book, but it's a cool scene to see play out.
Yeah, but I think it's also a scene that alludes to the Petunia wanting to say something.
Right. Which I wish she did.
Yeah.
I think that could have been a really fulfilling thing.
I agree. I feel like this may be a weird statement, but I actually kind of really want a book about Petunia. I feel like we got a lot of unanswered questions from Petunia. We can talk, it's not really super spoilery, but we can talk about it in the spoilers a little bit.
Well, let's get to the spoilers. We'll be right back with the spoiler section right after this. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Is your cold making it hard for you to get to sleep and leading to a bad morning? Switch to Mucinex Night Shift for fast, powerful nighttime multi-symptom cold and flu relief. Mucinex Night Shift fights your worst nighttime symptoms to help you get to sleep and wake up ready to go. Mucinex Night Shift. It's comeback season. Use as directed.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf.
All right, so we're back with the spoiler section of Chapter 3, The Dursleys Departing. And shockingly, we have more Dursley talk ahead of us.
What do you think happens to the Dursleys at the end of all this?
Yeah, I know she's come out and said that Harry and Dudley have had a relationship going forward after the events of this book. And to the extent where even their children have, like, play dates and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people have theorized that, you know, one of Dudley's kids ends up being magical because, again, he's Petunia's son and there's magical blood in that lineage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's plausible, which would be an interesting kind of fan fiction.
I'm just kind of intrigued by it all because, especially with how they left things, I mean, we talked about how Dudley and Harry's interaction kind of opens the door for them in the future. When you think about everything that happens through this book and the Dursleys are, you know, in some, like, Sea Shack or Motel 6 or wherever they are for this whole time, like, how much do the Dursleys find out at the end? Like, are they just like, hey, all right, we won, peace out? Or is there actual, like, yeah, so Harry low-key died, but he didn't. He's fine. We won.
So
you can go home.
Do you think that, because obviously this war gets really dark, and the Order of the Phoenix is not on the winning side of this throughout the vast majority of this book. Like, they're getting hammered relentlessly. They are losing members left and right. And do you think at some point they have to be like, hey, Hestia, Diggle, we kind of need you? Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, does it eventually, like, do they stay with the Dursleys the whole time? Do they quit? Do they leave? Do they get attacked? And so I think it'd be kind of interesting to find out, like, what exactly happened. And did all of this change Petunia? Did it change Vernon? Like, do I think it drastically changed them? Like, no, but I'm intrigued, especially with, like, Petunia's knowledge of the magical world and knowledge of Voldemort. If all of this kind of knocks some sense into her because her sister died at the hands of Voldemort and now her nephew, who's the only connection to her sister, literally died but came back. But
I don't think anything changes within the year. And they might be getting updates from Jones and Diggle, but
would Jones and Diggle even be getting updates? Because how would you even...
the Order has ways to communicate that aren't... I mean, Patronuses and stuff like that could do it.
Yeah, true.
But I would think after, when Harry does reconnect with Dudley, I would be interested to see what Vernon and Petunia do with that. Because they're like, oh, our son now has deemed Harry acceptable. Do they, like, switch? Or do they resolutely...
I mean, I would assume they have to, because when Dudley is like, yeah, I'm going with the Order, y'all do what you want, but I'm going with them, they're both like, of course we're going with the Order. We're going too. You're going, we're going. We were always going.
I could honestly... This is going to get into the weeds on the Dursley relationship, but I could see Petunia changing her tune.
I think Vernon would, but he wouldn't be happy about it.
I don't know that he would. I honestly don't, because Petunia... So we kind of hinted at this idea of Vernon and Petunia have very different outlooks on the Wizarding World. Yes, they both have a disdain and a dislike for it, but Vernon's is just, I hate anything that's not boring and normal. Petunia is, the Wizarding World took something from me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, initially when she was a child, she might have been jealous of Lily, like, oh, you have this power that I don't have, this stinks.
Yeah.
But as they got older... I would like to think that they, as Dudley and Harry, at least grew up to tolerate each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think she enjoyed that her sister is gone at such a young age, at 21, where, you know, we said, oh, they have so much time ahead of them. Well, maybe not. You're in a war.
Yeah.
And Harry's a vital part of it, so he might not. It's hard. And I think if Harry establishes a relationship with Dudley... Petunia might come around to the idea of, like, okay, here's how we're going to maybe build this up. And Harry is coming out of this at 17. Let's say him and Dudley have a cordial relationship for another 10 years. 27. Yeah. Now they have kids. the whole 19 years later bit where they have kids. Okay, maybe they have kids together. Now you're looking at, 20 years down the road, they're 37. And Petunia has a potential maybe grandson that might be magical or granddaughter that's magical. That's 20 years down the road. Maybe she softens her stance because Dudley has softened his stance.
Yeah, but I also wonder if part of Petunia's hatred, we'll call it, of Harry is similar to Snape's, of Harry is also the reminder.
That's fair. That's very fair.
And so I also wonder if coming out of this, because not only is he a reminder of what magic's taken from her, but also a reminder of James Potter, who is the person who would have actually not kept Lily away. That's a bad phrasing of it, but you're a witch who married a wizard. It kind of solidified that you're staying in the world.
So I think we talk a lot about how therapy can help a lot of people in this wizarding world, and yet it doesn't seem to exist. But I think the conversation that was left unhad at the end of this chapter with Petunia and Harry, I think could happen in that intervening 19, 20 years of just hey, can we just talk about Lily? What was she like as a kid? Who was my mother?
I kind of see that almost as Petunia's olive branch one day, though, that not Harry approaching her, because I don't think Harry, from what we've seen of Harry's character, I don't think Harry would ever approach it, because he also doesn't view Petunia as having known Lily. I think it would be more of a, once Harry and Dudley are friendly, that when Petunia realizes that it's time for her to get over herself, that it's you bring out the shoebox of old photos and just you kind of put it down in front of Harry and say I want you to have these.
Let's talk this out kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to potentially poke the fan base a little bit. The odd look that Petunia gives Harry. Yes, he does look like James Potter. Do you think she wants a last look at Lily's eyes?
Possibly. I don't hate that idea. Seemingly wanting to say something is, I believe, a direct quote. And I'm sure looking at him that's still the son of your only sister who is dead. That you were responsible of keeping alive, not just from the here's food, clothes, shelter, but from the hey, real bad things can happen if you don't take this child in. And I wonder if there was some kind of, whether it's wanting to give an explanation of the hatred or going, I can't protect you anymore, so good luck. Not sarcastically good luck, but actually good luck. And then sitting there and realizing I have been so terrible to you for these past 16 years that what do I even say that fixes it? I can't turn and say
my bad.
Well, you can't even turn and say you have your mother's eyes. Oh man, that would have been a good line though. If she turned and just said that to him as the I see Lily in you. Heart emoji.
Yeah. I think Petunia's story is actually very fascinating. I would like to get a side story on Petunia, both prior to and post these books.
Yeah, I also want to know just how much the Dursleys actually know, about what's going on. Do they realize how bad it actually is, or is it just Voldemort bad?
Again, I think Petunia realizes a lot more than, because again, she lost a sister to this exact same thing. She recognizes a lot of the words, whether Vernon wants to accept that or not. Petunia's understanding a lot more of this conversation, which we can get into the actual dynamic of this whole family, of what Vernon says goes 100% of the time, and Petunia's off in the corner, just accepting whatever decision is made, which is weird because again, Petunia knows more than Vernon in this sense. The Dursleys are a lot more interesting. We've had a lot more in-depth conversations about them, I think, than any of us really realized we would throughout this podcast, because it is kind of fun to dip into their mentality and their emotions, and obviously we had a lot of fun with Dudley and the Dementor attack, because Elizabeth had that great line of like, wait, was that going to be Dudley's first kiss? Which is a whole thing. But he went through some stuff, clearly. And I think that's when Harry first realized, like, oh, Dudley's got a lot more going on in that head than he ever gave him credit for, because what could Dudley possibly have that a Dementor would want? That what is that despair? He's been pampered his entire life. Mm-hmm. And I think that really that's the moment when they're like, oh, wait, there might be something more to this friendship than they each thought.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot there. Do you have anything else?
That's all I got.
Cool. We will wrap up this chapter, chapter 3, The Dursleys Departing, and we will, we have this small little chapter coming up next. I don't know if you really remember reading this chapter at all, Julie. No? I'm just going to wing it. Yeah, it was a terrible chapter in the books.
It's real short. There's no details in it at all. Nothing important happens.
It's really stupid in the movie, too.
Please still listen. But
it might be one of the worst chapters in all of the series, for sure. It's a little chapter called The Seven Potters. So we will dive into that. It's a really good chapter. It's a great chapter. Yeah. Please come back next
Please
week.
Listen to us
for The Seven Potters. Again, thank you all for listening. If you want us to continue on after this book, let us know. Let us know that what you want us to talk about, and we'll try to cover it all. So, thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hogwarts a Pod.